helping us do that. You know, I didn't grow up in New Mexico. I grew up near Paris. So I have to learn all of that, and I have to put myself in the frame of mind of what it was like at the end of World War II in the United States when Japan had just capitulated, okay? All the able-bodied men and women were in uniform, scattered all over the globe. They hadn't come back to their families yet. So we have to, historically, this is an incredibly rich series of records. And for me, I mean, I learned so much about the end of the war in the Pacific that was really very emotional for me because I had not, heard this in class. I mean, this was completely new to me. The population there was part Indian. That's why there is an Indian woman who was, Jose's grandmother.
I don't know how many greats, but she was
great
my
grandmother.
Mama Grande.
Who was an Apache.
She was an Apache.
She was
an Apache leader.
Chiricahua Apache.
She was a chief running that part of New Mexico. Okay, and then there were the Mexican immigrants, and then Remy Baca came from a Spanish family. Spoke Spanish,
yeah,
but
he came from Spain.
They came from Spain. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's important because when you read the history books, they talk about Oppenheimer, Dr. Oppenheimer. They talk about Enrico Fermi. They talk about all the great scientists. The best physicists of the 20th century were there. They were between Los Alamos and White Sands. Now, I've learned the work of these people in physics, but they were only there for 4 years. They ate at the little restaurant where your uncle had worked as a kid, preparing the meat and preparing the hamburgers.
Yeah, we didn't understand because we didn't live in those days that at 9 years old, Jose was driving a truck. He was driving the truck. He was driving the hamburger to the El Barn Cafe, which is on the Pan American Highway. I don't know how many times we've eaten there since the time, because we always. I was there 3 weeks ago and I ate there, but that's where the Manhattan Project scientists were. So they had cabins behind there, and your Uncle Jose said he saw Oppenheimer several times. And I had talked to the owner of that cafe, and they said, well, we didn't know they were scientists. We thought they were salesmen because they had these leather bags that they'd walk in with these leather kind of suitcases. It was a top secret project. I mean, that was one of the reasons they didn't tell the people when they exploded the bomb, and all of that fallout for 150 miles that affected everybody that died of leukemia, and the cows that they tested afterwards in the city and all they went through. They couldn't tell them. It was top secret. So one of the reasons Jacques and I have talked this over is we've lived those moments of Jacques has said it in interviews. This was no test. They didn't tell those people anything.
No, they didn't warn anybody, and a lot of the families, the people that had ranches with their cows and horses, a lot of them died, and a lot of the families that live there have become very sick with a cancer. Even when I was living there, I don't know if because I lived where there was a lot of radiation there. I had 4 cancer operations myself, along with my uncle, and I don't know if that's because of the radiation that was left there. It doesn't go away. It stays.
This is 13
it
miles away from ground zero. 13 miles away. And when they were gathered together, your uncle said, they were taken into like a meeting room and told that they had exploded an ammunition dump. They never told them they had exploded an atomic bomb. And so, but we have to look at this because one of the reasons, yes, we have Roswell, but if we have a crash 1 month after the explosion of the atomic bomb 13 miles away, you need to look at it in the context of history. And that's the work that you did. the fact that it was no test, that they learned that exploding it from the ground is much more powerful. Yeah.
What did your grandfather tell you about what had happened there? What you must have been asking him questions about, how come there are all these things and where do they come from and so on. Did he talk about that?
Well, actually, I was so used to seeing those things around the house that I got used to them, and they were always there, and I didn't feel a need to even ask because, I was just used to strange things around the house. I mean, I guess that's why I'm strange right now. I'm already eccentric. My kids are scared of me, and
so they were like toys for you? They were like toys, or
oh yeah,
things
to me it
with,
felt
or?
like a toy. It just I didn't have a lot of dolls and stuff, so I played.
You
with
didn't have a
whatever.
lot of toys, so
I didn't
these
have
were
a lot of
toys for you.
So it was
Yeah.
like something to keep my curiosity up until I got tired of it, and And
But-
then it got to the place I didn't even bother him with him at all. I just got tired of all that thing,
It was just things around the house. But Jacques, we need to also go to the actual last day when they were doing the recovery, because as mischievous as your uncle is, he not only was, he is. Jose Padilla went inside the craft and pulled a fairly large-sized piece off a wall.
Yeah, he did.
So we have a craft, we have the location, and we have a bracket. And that's the part, I mean, for me, the witness testimony is the most important thing, but the idea that they would wait until everybody went to the Owl Bar and Cafe, and the way your uncle describes it, he goes, oh, they wanted to see the girls because they wanted to leave, they knew they were going to leave. These are young boys that were doing the recovery. In fact, when Jose explained it, he said they were playing country music out of the Jeeps, and they didn't want to pick up all the pieces, so what they did is make a little berm, and with their feet, they would throw the pieces into this little berm because they were lazy. But this is the first time. I don't think any of these kids, these guys, these young guys knew what they were looking at or knew what they were cleaning up. They weren't wearing hazmat suits. They were just doing what they were told. And then the last day, they leave it alone. They leave it there in the area. They put a tarp on it, and they have to put it sideways because it has to go under the underpass. And then that's when your mischievous uncle went in there and took a crowbar and pulled a piece off the wall.
He
and
did.
that is really
and we
interesting.
had it ever since. We buried it under the house and stayed there for many years. And then as we took it out from under the house after a couple of years, I'm glad we did take it out because the house ended up burning down. And at that time, the houses were made out of adobe, and the electrical wasn't very good back there. It was just old stuff, and I ended up, the house burned down. We had already removed the object that we had hidden on there for so many years, and so I'm glad that was taken out of there before
Where
that
is
occurred.
it now? It's at Stanford with Jacques. We gave it to Jacques, and his team is working on it with the understanding that eventually it will go to Rice University, where mine and Jacques and Whitley Strever's archives are going, because we're going to donate our archives to Rice University in Houston, and this piece will also go there.
Do you remember your uncle handling the bracket?
Oh, many times. Many times.
So you can give us, the sort of a verification. You can verify
Okay, it was
that
about-
they had that, because we're trying to reconstruct exactly, a chain of evidence to make sure that what we have is the part that actually came from there.
Okay,
So
it was-
scientists will to know that.
It was about this long.
You got to put
And it was very light. It was light as a feather. And it was like a grayish, silver, metallic color, very smooth to the touch, and just very light. And it almost felt like a piece of junk.
And they were still
But,
hiding
it
it,
was
right?
just like that.
They were still hiding it.
Oh, well, of course. Because,
They stole it. They stole
Of course.
They borrowed it.
Yeah.
They borrowed it.
Well,
Did they tell you where it came from?
They didn't tell me they took it off the craft, but I'm not surprised because my family's that way. I just got to say
that's normal. You were just a little girl, right?
Well, of course. I just got to say it like this, these two little boys was my uncle and his friend. Nothing too much happens over there. It's like a little quiet town. Unless somebody dies or get born or we have holidays and things.
The boys were keeping their secrets.
But you can imagine this thing coming out the sky and landing right there, and causing all this confusion. I expected God and the 12 disciples to come in before that happened. You know what I mean? I didn't expect that. That was just like, oh, we're in trouble now. And so it just, it changed our whole lives. It changed our whole lives, even to this day. And this is not in the book, by the way, but when I was in the 4th grade, they came looking for me and tried to take me from the school, 2 men. They called the principal up and said, we're picking her up. But because all our family was close together and we all knew each other, we were either related somehow or whatever, even the principal, he called my grandfather up, you better come and get her. And at that time, the school where I went, that elementary school, was so poorly made that they didn't even have a fence around it, and it was built on top of 4 volcanoes. So then when they found that somebody was trying to take me from the school, that's when they put a fence around the school. But I believe it was somebody from the government that might have been trying to catch me by myself because I was a child then, and to see if I would tell them or they could get something out of me of what we might have in the house or what we don't have, or something, for that matter. So.
Yeah, because both Remy and Jose, well, Jose's story is amazing. I mean, he joins the Marines at 14 years old, goes to Korea, gets shot, and Remy left. The 6-year-old Remy left, moved to Gig Harbor, Washington. When I got to them, Remy was in Gig Harbor, and your uncle was in Rowland Heights, California, when I got to them 9 years ago. So they had moved out of San Antonio. So she's a gold mine because she had stayed. And I guess she saw the Army coming in. And, of course, they knew that something was missing from the inside of the craft. If you read the book, there's another story, and I'm going to tell this story because it's too weird, where when they first took the Tesoro, they put it inside the sheep herder shack. The sheep herder was hired by Remy Baca's father, and they put it underneath the dirt and the floorboards, and the sheep herder came to the house, and we have this on camera, to Mr. Baca and said, I have to move out of here. He says, because 3 homocitos came through the wall looking for the Tesoro. It means 3 little beings came through the wall looking for the thing, whatever the thing is. And so that's when your uncle took it out of there and went and put it in his house.
Yeah, he took it to California.
But that is a mysterious thing, because then we have to look at each other and we know they're not lying, that 3 beings come through the wall looking for the thing. So if it belongs to the government, and we don't know where it belongs, then what are those 3 beings looking for the thing for? I mean, it's gone from the inside of the wall. It was on a panel, a square panel, that had 4 kind of, he called them like plates, little, they weren't nails, but they were fastened to the wall. This bracket went around in a circle on a copper circle. We don't know its function, but your uncle says it was a copper circle. It was the only thing they could take. He took a crowbar, he pulled it off, and the pin fell on the ground. He knew it went around in a... We have no idea what it is, but we have at least an artifact of some kind.
And by the way, it will go to a university for scientists to study it once we're through with the what we can do, whatever analysis we can do. This was, to me, I mean, this was an extraordinary experience, Paola, being invited into that case that you had already studied for 4 years. We worked on it for 4 years. There were some moments of disagreement. There were some moments when, because, the Army came in with a truck. So, as I said, they were speaking Spanish. The officer was speaking Spanish to your grandfather, and came in saying, we need to cut your fence. And Faustino Padilla, your grandfather, said, why do you need to cut my fence? I mean, there is a gate for the cattle, you can use that. Says, well, it's not big enough for the truck that we're going to bring. We need to bring a truck, and then we need to build a road to the place where that weather balloon landed. So Faustino said, oh, weather balloons, you want weather balloons? I pick up your weather balloons because, White Sands was sending weather balloons every morning, because they needed to know the wind and so on around the facility. So they were landing in the ranches all over the place. And being a good citizen, he was picking up the weather balloons. So he takes them to the back room and gives them a bunch of weather balloons. They said, no, this is a special weather balloon, and we need to bring a truck, and your gate isn't big enough. So I was asking Paola, what kind of truck was it? I mean, you've done the research. Okay?
Well,
and she said, I don't know. Why do you need to know that? I mean, the truck is a truck.
Okay, I can maybe tell you a little bit about the truck. It was called a lowboy.
Yes.
And what it is, it's a truck that has like a jerry bed on it. I don't know if you are familiar with a jerry bed. And it goes up and down like you do like one of those U-Haul trucks. It's got a little thing that goes up and down. You load it up and then you press the button. And the reason they did that is because they had to be able to regulate it to get it under the bridge, where the freeway.
Underpass,
Yeah, so they had to be able to lower it and try to, get it through.
And you need an 18-wheeler to pick up a weather balloon. I mean, everybody knows that, okay? So, So this was an 18-wheeler, with a lowboy.
Yeah.
To load the thing. They also built everything they needed to build a crane. Remember, you're a few hours away from any facility, any factory, any town, anything. You're in the middle of nowhere. And so they erect that crane to pick up the avocado and put it on the lowboy and take it away. So now this is, this is not, the usual type of weather balloon. When it was, as you said, on the side, on the lowboy, now this was the end of the cleaning up and so on. All the soldiers went to have a beer at the local, cafe. And Jose and Remy thought this would be a great time to look inside.
Of course.
Because they had not been allowed by, by their father to go inside.
Yeah.
The father went inside, never told them what he saw.
Yeah.
So they wanted to see. So Jose went inside. There was a tarp over the avocado. They went through under the tarp, and they went inside. Jose asked Remy to get a cheetah bar. I've learned a lot of English in researching this thing, with Sabrina and with Paola. I've learned a lot of English terms I didn't know. A cheetah bar is really
crowbar.
Is really the crowbar that you use, and they knew that on the side of the truck there was always a crowbar to secure the load. So Jose tells Remy, go get me the cheetah bar. He gets it and he pulls out this bracket that we have from the wall. We don't have the other part of the apparatus. And to someone who was trained in physics like me, this is this is a very interesting question, was this part of the original equipment of this craft, for which there is no explanation how it came here under its own power, or was it something that the Army brought? And I have some arguments with my friends in the lab about which is which. I mean, it looks outside, it looks like a perfectly normal bracket that you would use. We know the composition. It's normal alloy. You could buy something almost like this from the kind of shop that for the equipment of a windmill or a water mill, or maybe an actuator in an old aircraft, or maybe in an old piece of equipment.
Aluminum alloy.
And so the problem is that what was it doing attached to the wall of this extraordinary machine that had no propeller, no visible means of propulsion, no wings, and nothing else. So this is sort of the next enigma. So we have a feeling now that we're just at the beginning, after all this research and all that, establishing the timeline and what happened to the land. Now we need to go forward and try to understand more about what that object really was. We've certainly excluded all the possibilities. We've looked like, could it be a hoax? Well, if it's a hoax, somebody has developed a very, very advanced machine back in 1945 that we still don't understand today.
It's really a weather balloon.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's why they wanted it so bad.
And one of the things when Jacques was saying that, and I want to explain this, that he kept asking me about how many wheels the low boy had, and because he was trying to figure out how much this craft weighed. We knew, if you see the where it was, we know it was 30 feet in diameter. My problem was he kept calling and asking all these questions that, who cares? I would say, who cares? And he'd say, no, I want you to go and call Jose. And I was calling your poor uncle every other day. How many wheels?